My friends, welcome back. In this episode, I am making a trash monster, or a monster made of materials that typically end up in the trash. I am using tissue paper, wire, and super glue. For this video, I winnowed down about 4 hours into a bite-sized chunk of crafting goodness. To start this small project, I scavenged a twist tie. This one had 2 wires in it, so I cut it in half and used one half for the goat legs and the other half for the torso and arms, and added a rudimentary head. I was going to make a demonic, hunched creature with a skull-like snout, but it ended up looking more like a raggedy ring wraith. The raggedy ring wraith is likely going to be the name of a drinking establishment in one of my future stories. No offense to actual ring wraiths. Since I don't have a lot of space, I tend to do smaller projects like this one, but as I'm discovering, if you make enough small projects, they can still take up a lot of room. Now, I'm not good at photographing miniatures, but it is fun. It's very satisfying to set up a scene with miniatures that I have scratch-built or painted myself, and with a little imagination, seeing it all come to life. It's fun for me to make up stories about the lives of the characters and to imagine what they might be talking about, and also to make up a bit of history about where they live. This little sandy-colored tower started as a trash build, inspired by the find of a shipping tube on the sidewalk. But now I have a whole backstory about it and the current owner. The tower is currently occupied by a fellow named Durgus Brogus. He is a retired adventurer who now runs a trading post. There's more to his story, but I'll save that for another time. And I did write a little bit of backstory for the trash monster, which I include at the end of the video. Before starting the gluing process, I taped down a sheet of wax paper to catch any drips. And anything that sticks to wax paper is easy to lift off, so I recommend laying that down first. Once the armature was done, I wrapped strips of paper towel and tissue paper around the wire, and then soaked the paper with super glue and repeated the process until I had bulked out the rough form. I found it was better to tear out strips of paper rather than cut strips with scissors, because the torn edges gave it a more natural look, and it was easier to blend the strips together that way. You could use this super glue tissue paper technique to make some really cool ripped and torn sails or banners. So even though the materials are a little bit unconventional, I did find that you can do a little bit of sculpting with the tissue paper. It actually lends itself very well to making shapes and being able to bulk out legs and arms and stuff like that. So if you take your time and kind of think about your next step, you can get a pretty good sculpting flow going with this technique. So I look forward to actually maybe using it again at some point. Maybe something with wings this time. I think that this translucency would lend itself really well to some sort of like wing structure. You could lay out the wires first and then add the tissue paper in between the wires. I might try that next time. As I was working on the project, I was imagining what sort of being this would be and what the backstory or lore would be. I came up with some ideas that I decided were more violent or macabre than I was interested in writing about, and finally decided that the ghost-like giant was a local guardian of the desert, an ancient spirit that protected the land and the life in it. It is one of the old gods, as old as the world itself, but its only concern is the safety of the desert scrubland and the creatures that call it home. It wanders the rocky hills and dunes, rooting out corrupting spirits and punishing those who would harm the land. It actively seeks out evil creatures to destroy and consume. The being, yet to be named, can be petitioned for favors by leaving offerings at one of the many small shrines that dot the landscape. There are nomads that live in the area that revere the guardian spirit, and they regularly pay homage to it. The spirit has been known to guide lost caravans to safety through raging dust storms, and even rescue those dying of thirst or starvation. There are rumors of precious metal and gems lying just under the sands, but the legend of a terrifying, vengeful giant have served to keep away treasure seekers and troublemakers.